Okay, perfect. And hi, Stephanie. I don't know if you can talk to us, but very nice to have you here. I've said hello to everybody. Okay, so today's presentation, we are talking about founder presence. And this is the first stop, actually, it's the second stop in a series of 7 stops that we're going to make this year, going through what I call the pillars of design entrepreneurship. So I take it as a given that you can design. I take it as a given that you've got that part. What I'm trying to encourage is for you to run your business really well so that you have the best opportunities, so that you beat the competition, so that you have the most fulfilling practice. I believe all of that comes from a well-run business. And so I've broken down the different operational aspects of business performance into these 7 different areas. Now, we did strategic vision and planning at the beginning of the year. So we did that in January. And now going through the rest of the year, not every month, but most months, I'm going to make a pit stop at one of the other 6. And they include things like marketing and brand expression, um, sales and client acquisition, operation systems and processes, financial mastery. So it's lots of different, very different aspects of business management. I think founder presence, which is where we're making our February stop, is separates the good designers from the great. So when I look at, if you name me a designer that has risen, has sort of who has about whom there is awareness in the industry, who's a well-known name, if you take a look at that designer, you look at what they say about themselves on their website, how they present themselves in public, they have a strong, original, distinctive, well-developed founder presence. So today we're going to be looking at that. Now, I'm going to share a presentation to talk you through it, and then we're going to have Q&A at the end. So, Sarah, could you just give me a thumbs up if you can see that presentation on the screen there? That's great. Okay, thank you. Right. So, founder presence. So this is, sorry, not progressing. This is the first of 2 webinars. So webinar 1 today, the 3rd of February. Webinar 2, a different webinar with a different perspective on this, is going to be in exactly 2 weeks' time, 10 a.m. UK time on the 17th of February. And at the end, I'll just cycle back and tell you what's happening in webinar 2. So today we are here thinking about founder presence. We're going to think about the definition. I'm going to tell you why commercially it's a big tick, why you should, for the commercial success of your business, have a distinct founder presence. I'm going to talk about something I spoke about a couple of times last week, which is necessity versus luxury, talking about how you create distinction, the point of parasocial relationships, having a designed presence. I'm going to talk you through a questionnaire that I've put into Hothouse, which I hope will help you make first steps at developing your founder presence. And then I'm just going to give you an outline of what will be discussed as part of presentation 2. So founder presence is, it's intangible. It is how you come across, how people feel in your presence. It's not really to do with confidence or charisma or personal branding or being good on camera. It's about being the version of yourself, because it is a version of yourself that your business most needs you to be. And we'll develop that theme. So founder presence is intentional. It's designed. It's a role that you inhabit on behalf of your business. So you're doing this for the good of your business. And for those who observe you, who encounter you, it's the felt experience of encountering you. It's what it feels like to be with you or to spend time with you. So the founder presence role encourages a sense among your clientele of safety in your hands, credibility in your offering, and your services coming second to this. So safety and credibility first, services coming second. And the felt experience, your presence is felt really before it's understood. So it's an instinct that we have about how a person is, rather than a sort of a conscious observation of them. Okay, now why it matters. Basically, when I have people approaching me saying that they want to work with me or they want to do one of my courses and they cite their current dissatisfaction with the way their business is operating, so many of the issues that are common within interior design practice, the challenges, could be resolved by founder presence and marketing. There's different things, but they are going to interweave a little bit. So founder presence reduces price sensitivity because people want to work with you. You get to the point that somebody thinks, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Somebody discovers how much you cost, and it sort of doesn't matter because they've already decided that they want to work with you. It's not about the price, it's about a desire to work with you. It accelerates the process of building trust with your clients. It increases your perceived value. So you can almost think of this, if you imagine a well-known interior design practice led by someone with high visibility, think of a name, and you imagine a client working with that studio and being sent a junior designer. Perceived value diminishes. It doesn't really matter how good that designer is, that they're no longer the founder, and the perceived value has diminished. And therefore, founder presence can increase the perceived value of your operation. It allows clients to buy into you before they buy their services, so they turn up ready to purchase. And it supports authority in ambiguity, by which I mean it gives you the benefit of the doubt. So where a client who's lacking confidence in their designer might second guess or question, regularly why a designer does things the way they do. But someone who has a really well-established founder presence, has authority, means that they get questioned less. So it's linked explicitly to the quality of inquiries that you get, the speed with which your clients are able to make decisions, the fact that you get fewer sort of, well, prove it to me questions, and you are more in control of the situation, you get fewer boundary challenges. So founder presence is the moat around your business. And I believe that increasingly we're going to need this defense, because not only are we going to be sitting in a busy market with human competitors, we're going to increasingly find ourselves up against digital competition. And you're being a human with defined qualities is going to help you against that digital competition. So founder presence and development of it is so important. Now, I spoke last week on Instagram and in my newsletter about the difference between running a luxury business and running a business that sells services that are a necessity. And I took the example of the interior designer versus the plumber. And I think that, if you imagine a brother and a sister, the sister is an interior, so I'm being horribly stereotypical here, but the sister is the interior designer, the brother is a plumber. They both decide to set up a business, and maybe they both start in a similar sort of a way. So the interior designer lets people know, they perhaps they go a little bit further insofar as they have a website and they start posting on social media, but that's about the extent of it. Now, when it comes to ordering services, to commissioning services, a plumber is a necessity. So when someone needs a plumber, they sort of have to buy. And it's not about a beauty parade. There isn't a decision-making process in terms of who's the best necessarily. They'll choose someone who has a good reputation and that's it, job done. But when it comes to interior design, this process, the services that an interior design offers, they're a discretionary luxury. Most of our clients can afford to wait. There's not the same level of urgency. The market is fairly competitive. We have competitors, and the difference between running an interior design practice or offering plumbing services is we have to actually have business strategy. We have to have business strategy. We have to plan our businesses. We have to have a much sort of more involved approach. And this, of course, includes helping ourselves to stand out in the market so that when the client looks around the market, not everybody looks exactly the same. And I can tell you from my work looking at different interior design practices, quite often I can't tell one from another. And I can imagine what that must feel like for the client. So, you're confronted with three or four different practices in your neighborhood, and they all look good. None of them stand out. And in the end, what it comes down to is you go by price, because that is the only distinction that is available across this selection of different interior design practices. So founder presence stops you being commodified in this basic sort of way. This is quite a harsh message, so warning. So I've got a list of words and I've put them into the Hothouse group because I think you're probably a lot of people are going to ask me if they can take a look at them again. But if you market using the following words and you find that your clients repeatedly focus on price, they keep coming back to you and trying to cut your prices, and that is the main sort of focus of their questioning. Here are the words. Sorry, they're a little bit small, but there's words there like seamless, effortless, tailored, responsive, considered, thoughtful, refined, high-end, design-led, calm, inviting, serene. A whole range of words here. If you're marketing with these words and people are focusing mainly on your pricing, don't be surprised, because you sound quite a lot like everybody else. You haven't given the client anything else to hook onto. You just are one of a herd that all sounds pretty similar, and therefore perhaps the only distinction that it can come down to is actually how much you charge for your services. If you think about the designers you most admire, the ones whose work is high profile, whose names are well known, then I think it's a really good practice to go and have a look at their website and see how they describe themselves and how they describe their services. Because I can tell you, the vast majority of them will not be using words like the words on that previous slide. They will have evolved through time, through iteration, a very distinct persona, a very distinct offering that stands proud, that stands apart from the general herd of interior design practitioners. So words are important. Our founder presence is where distinction lies, where we start to generate magnetism, where we start to attract clients, and it's where non-rational decision making happens. So an interior design, the decision to commission an interior designer is a heart-led decision. It comes from the heart, and you really hope to make a connection with somebody who understands you, who you admire, who you have excitement at the prospect of working with. You also want your head to be satisfied that this is a sensible choice. So the decision is made with the heart, but then we look to the head to just rubber stamp it. We look to the head for permission. So founder presence is where we make this heart-led connection with our clients, and hopefully the other stories that we tell about how trustworthy our business is, how organized we are, how well we do our job, is simply the permission that the client needs to go ahead and make the decision to work with you. Now, I talk a lot about parasocial relationships. I first came across the expression listening to Daniel Priestley, I think, talking to Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO podcast. And a parasocial relationship it's a one-sided relationship where a viewer, an observer, feels like they are friends with the person that they're observing, feels like they are building a relationship with that person. And Daniel Priestley categorized it. He put three numbers against it, and the numbers were 4, 7, 11. And he said that 4 was the number of platforms on which you want to encounter this person that you're watching, that 7 is the number of hours that you spend in their presence before the parasocial relationship is sort of consummated, and 11 is the number of times that you've encountered them. And he spoke about how we might think we know a movie star. So people, Tom Cruise being, someone approaching Tom Cruise in a restaurant and thinking that they really know him because they've watched so many of his movies and they've seen him interviewed on the telly. They've spent time in his presence. Now, I can tell you that this effect of creating parasocial relationships with a prospective clientele really works. And I know it from my own experience because I'm on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I have my website. So I'm on multiple different platforms. I've got lots of different videos. There's lots of different ways of seeing my stuff. And there's hours of stuff and there's many different bits around. And I regularly get people approaching me in a very familiar way, ready to work with me. They turn up ready to work with me. And I love my clients. The people I work with are a complete joy. And I have had designers say to me that they are well aware that we've had a parasocial relationship before they've ever got in touch with me. It really works. So a parasocial relationship is this sense of familiarity that a client can build with you without you even knowing that they're there. They matter within interior design because they predetermine that someone trusts you. They pre-build trust so that you don't have to persuade and sell and cajole when you actually meet the person. The person turns up already ready and willing and happy to work with you. I talk about a trust gap, and the trust gap is the period between your launch of marketing and that marketing actually starting to deliver in terms of sales. So if you decided brand new business, starting a marketing campaign in January, it could be 6 to 12 months before that marketing campaign really kicks in, before you start to feel the benefits of it. But if you work to build a parasocial relationship, it can actually condense that period, that lag between visibility and credibility. It can help speed the process up. And it can feel like nothing's happening, but partway through this process, you'll start to get sort of tinglings as strangers. You'll notice perhaps that your website stats will improve. You'll notice that people that you don't know make contact with you. You'll start to get a sense that this is actually really working. So this taking responsibility, elevating yourself, making yourself more visible, trying to make yourself more original, a version of yourself, but focusing in on what your business really needs you to be doing. This is all part of the founder presence role, and it is definitely a commercial driver for your business. So founder presence, parasocial relationships, this process of raising your visibility, of being the you that your business needs you to be, can make the waiting period while you wait on this marketing to kick in, can give you sort of productive work to do in the interim, and maybe give you hope that things are progressing, that you are being proactive in making things work for your business. And it allows trust to compound before a client gets in touch with you. So you'll hear rustlings in the undergrowth, and then eventually strangers, prospective clients, will start to wander into the clearing because of this work that you're doing. Now, I've got two driving slogans, or something that I want to call them, for 2026. And the first of these is own your business. And by that, I mean, it's something I've heard called radical ownership. And radical ownership is realizing that you're not powerless in all of this, that you're not a victim and things aren't happening to you, but that actually you are responsible for the progress and the development of your business. It's on your shoulders, and you need to carry it. So being proactive about the development of this persona, this version of yourself that you put out in public, can be a really powerful, beneficial thing to do for your business. And the second idea that I really want to promote this year is this idea of designing your business, because a lot of designers say to me that they don't think they're particularly strategic. Strategy isn't something that they felt is a strength of theirs, and yet it's what they do for a living. They problem solve for their clients. So they go in, they assess, they analyze, they respond, they solve, and then they project manage the implementation, the application of the solution. It's strategy. It's what you do for a living. So as a designer, offering these great services, being good at your job, you also ought to be really good at designing your business. And it's something that you can actively do. So this isn't entirely true. It's a bit of a sort of dramatic statement. But one way of looking at this is that everything in your business is either designed, either you grab it by the throat and take charge of it, or it happens accidentally. Now, that's not entirely true, because aspects of good business practice can evolve. They can evolve over time through iteration, but what evolves can be so much more powerful, so much more right, so much stronger, so much better if you've actively participated in designing it, in making it happen, in being intentional about what it is. And so that's what we're going to talk about in a minute when we look at a questionnaire. So founder presence is no exception. It should be designed, it should be intentional, it should be something that you set out to make happen for your business. And ignoring it can have consequences. The consequences can be of having lower visibility, of merging more into the sort of mass of design offerings, and going back to having all of those problems that interior designers report with clients who aren't treating them in the way that they wish they would. But it's because the designer really isn't giving them the reasons to feel lucky to be working with that particular designer. Now, so I talked about this being founder presence being something that you design. It can be something that you design in iterations. What it isn't is trying to copy somebody else. So we are talking about a version of you. And I get that when I started out, I didn't know who I was. I really didn't know if I had anything distinctive about me, about my personality, about the way I come across. I really couldn't see it. And so when I started out, I thought, I don't know if I should be admitting this, but I really liked Sophie Robinson. I thought she was brilliant, and I thought that maybe I could be a version of her. And if you go onto my Instagram and you scroll all the way back, you'll find me channeling Sophie Robinson. And it wasn't a fit. I mean, obviously, I'm not her and I couldn't be her. And it was helpful because it got me in front of a camera. You know, it emboldened me and it got me in front of a camera. But I was never going to make a living as a second-rate Sophie Robinson. So it's really important that this founder that we develop, that we evolve, that we iterate, is a version of ourselves. And in a minute, we'll talk about how we select the parts that get into the persona and the bits that we decide to keep for our private lives. But it's important not to be trying to copy somebody else and trying to get to the bottom of authentically who you are, because there is somebody there, even if at the moment you're not quite sure of their identity. So, founder presence. As founder, you are a version of yourself. You might be the whole of you goes out there. It might be some small percentage of you goes out there. You get to choose, you get to design who this brand ambassador is that's going to step forward and be the face of your business. So you are creating yourself as the you that your business most needs you to be. So we're deciding, what does my business need? What does it need from me? What can I do for it? How can I be that person? So I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm just going to see if I can, bear with me for a second. Sorry, go back into this. And here we have a questionnaire. Okay. Could somebody just shout at me and let me know that you can see the questionnaire? If you could take yourself off mute quickly.
I can see it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so this I have put into the Hothouse group, and it's a template worksheet for you to, it's like a journal, really, for you to journal and write your heart out about what you think your role should be, what you think your emotional signature should be, and so on. And I'll just run through it very quickly together. So, when we think about different businesses, we think about different designers. Excuse me, sorry. We see some designers being more directional, more sort of dictatorial, and other designers being softer and more gentle. So we can decide what job our founder presence needs to perform within our business, the nature of us. And of course, it's going to be aligned with your personality. We're not putting on, we're inhabiting this role, we're not performing it. So it's coming from us. It needs to be led by us and our personality in the first place. So you can start by thinking about whether you're going to reassure your clients, whether you're going to provoke them, whether you are walking alongside them, whether you're leading, so what exactly do you see your particular role being with regard to your clients and in terms of your founder leadership? Then you can think about the kind of emotional state that you want to transmit. Do you want to reassure your clients? Do you want them to feel like they're calm and steady? Do you want them to feel excited? Do you want them to feel sort of in the middle of this creative whirlwind? What feelings or emotions are going to increase through exposure to you? And what feelings and emotions are going to decrease? What are you going to help to sort of calm down in terms of emotions and feelings? Then we have your type of authority. So whether you're going to be quiet, whether it's a quiet authority, a sort of felt authority, but quiet, whether it's going to be more charismatic, whether it's going to be more reflective, whether it's going to be more directional, whether you're going to take strong positions on what design is, or whether you are going to defer more to your clients and to your clients' preferences. So you can decide what kind of authority you want to bring. And as we're responding to this, it's like like I say, it's like a journal entry. It's your deepest, sort of most sincere thoughts about how you perform under these different headings. Then we can think about how close we stand to our audience. And I think about this as being like social circles. So we have our life partner, perhaps, is the person who knows us best, who knows us, who knows the most of what's going on in our heads. Then we have our very best friends. They know us perhaps not to quite the same degree, but they know us intimately. Then we have our good friends, who know us quite well, but perhaps they're not privy to our innermost thoughts. And then we have acquaintances, people who are more than strangers, but perhaps we would be more formal with them or we wouldn't share quite so much with them. So you can think about, for your purposes, how intimately you want to involve yourself, how much you're going to reveal of yourself to the audience that you are presenting to, where your presence is being observed. So working out the distance and the boundary, what is deliberately withheld, what is shared, and that will help you to decide what you say and what you don't say, what you talk about and what you don't talk about. Then you can think about how you speak. Now, I speak quite slowly. And that's going to make an impression. That's going to have an impact in terms of how I'm perceived. I also quite like long words. And I know that I like vocabulary. I know I'm going to end up using it. There's no point me trying to simplify that. I want to be naturally myself. So what kind of language do you use? Do you use slang? Do you use formal language? How complex is your language? How long are your sentences? What's your natural way of speaking and how should it be in order to create the impact that you want to create with your clients, with your audience? Pacing and energy, how still are you? How much I need to work on that actually. How much do you move around? How much, how does your nervous system manifest in these observations that people are making of you? How often are you going to be visible? In terms of founder presence, it doesn't, I'm not necessarily talking about being on camera. Founder presence could be answering questions on social media. It could be writing. It could be writing a blog or a column. It could be speaking at an event. There are all kinds of ways that you can raise your visibility, but it doesn't please don't assume that this necessarily means talking on video. But think about how often would feel comfortable for you to be exposed in this way. So perhaps you feel like you could do a good job if it was once a week, but if it was 3 times a week, it would start to be overwhelming. So you can think about the cadence of your visibility. Then you can think about visual signals. So we might be talking about styling and the way that you present yourself, not style so much, but the signals that you give off. So whether you are formal or whether you're more relaxed, whether you're very polished or whether you're natural. And this starts to tie in with your design style. So you might start thinking about the kinds of interiors you like to design and how your visual express or how you express yourself visually to relate to the way that you actually design interiors. Um, your relationship to vulnerability. So, how much of yourself are you going to put out there? How honest and open are you going to be? How fragile are you going to allow yourself to be seen by the people who are watching? Um, this again is a sort of question about intimacy and how comfortable you feel being being vulnerable. Now, I've had feedback from some of my clients that they don't want to see anything from me that is negative in terms of, oh, I had a bad day, or I'm feeling a bit down, or things aren't going exactly right. They tell me they don't want to hear that from me. That shouldn't be part of my founder presence. And so you can think about, your mood and how much you share, and the vulnerability sort of comes in on that front. Then we have your how strong an opinion you want to project. So do you want to be very opinionated? Do you want to be more sort of taciturn? Do you want to hold more back? Do you want to be sort of more gentle in the way that you offer opinions? Um, are you going to challenge your clients, or are you going to be sort of softer with them? And you can imagine how you're going to attract a different kind of client depending on the decisions you make about how you answer some of these questions. What are you going to talk about? What will you permit yourself to venture opinions on? And what do you think you should avoid discussing? Um, Politics, religion, aspects of design, or, you know, even things like talking about bad design can come across as being negative. So you want to think about the impact that the things you talk about are going to make, and whether that's something you want to associate with your founder presence. Um, and then what is going to happen to the people who work with you when they've been working with you over time? How are they going to feel about the relationship that they have with you? Are they going to feel more confident in their design choices? Are they going to have greater clarity about where they're going and what they want? Will they feel braver? Will they feel calmer, better able to make decisions? What is proximity to you going to gift to your clients, to the people that work with you? Um, then we have the parts of the private self that you don't bring to the business. So this is where you can ring fence elements of your world that don't make the cut into your founder presence. You can decide not to have these elements as part of the things that you're going to display and you're going to talk about. Now, I working with some of my clients, they've told me that it's actually easier to talk about themselves as a founder in the third person. So, actually thinking about this founder as being a different person and saying he or she would say this, he or she would do that, and that it helps them to feel more natural, to feel more confident through this process when they're actually putting this together in the third person. So that might feel like it gives you a little bit more distance and it feels less personal as you're developing this role. So you can also think about how this persona might evolve over time. Although I'd suggest that it's something that you actively um, monitor yourself. You analyze how it's coming across. You see what feedback you get. You look at the kind of people that step forward as a result of what you're doing, and you sort of put all of that data together to regularly check how things are going and maybe tweak your founder presence as you go. I mean, I think it's taken me 2 years of working on it to get to something that I feel relatively comfortable about. I'm not there yet, but it feels workable. And I feel like I understand who I should be when I'm speaking in public. But it's taken 2 years, and it's 2 years of trying stuff, bringing some stuff on, leaving some stuff behind, through practice. So these things really matter. Now, what I have done is I've put a version of this questionnaire into the Hothouse group, but the one that I've put in there has a further page, and the further page on the one that's in the group contains an AI prompt. So if you journal your answers to all of these questions and you put together a sort of an essay on your founder presence, what it should be, there is a prompt that's included in the one that's in Hothouse that tells you how to input your essay into AI and have AI run for you a first draft of what you should do, what you should say, how you should present. It's an incredibly, well, I found it an incredibly informative and enlightening piece of work. It helped me enormously. So I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend using AI as part of this exercise. So that's all that I had to say on the matter as part of the presentation. I hope it persuades you that there is a role for this within your business. You are not going to figure it out in a week or even a month. It's something that will evolve, but it's good to design it in the first place, try it on, see what works, evolve it, change it. But as part of this process, you're actually getting yourself out there, you're actually becoming more visible, you're actually getting noticed, and you're starting to drive a degree of distinction between you and the other people working in your area who just don't look that original, who just don't appear to have a sort of distinctive persona that is pulling the client necessarily pulling the clients off the fence. So that I'm going to ask you now for Q&A. If anybody wants to make any comments, I would love your comments, any questions about anything at all, interior design related. Anyone got anything that they would like to discuss on this subject? Stephanie.
Hi, Julia. That was really wonderful. Thanks so much. I think I just one comment. I think that your point about parasocial relationships is just so fascinating. And I feel like it will really, just thinking more about that will definitely feed into a marketing plan or a communication plan in some pretty concrete ways. So I love how it's not just an idea, but that it can actually say, okay, if I were looking at me, what are the different touch points that might be interesting to experience me, or my studio, or me as my studio? So I think that's just really fascinating. Um, I had a question. Um, about um, this sort of process of designing your founder presence. I was, looking at the worksheet and the various questions, and how does that dovetail with your governing values? is it a chicken and egg thing where they both have, I mean, I would imagine they do need to speak to each other, or do they somehow, um, I suppose they relate to one another? Is there um, a process by which we can make sure there's a cohesiveness or a coherence between the two, or maybe just even in your own experience? Um, Maybe it just develops organically, really. But I'd be interested to know what you think of that
Yeah.
relationship.
Um, so responding, I'll come back to your question, but I do want to say that there are a few designers that I work with quite closely, and I have worked with them over a period of time. So both the cases I'm thinking about, over a year. And in that period of time, those designers have really owned their founder presence. They have worked hard on it. They have discovered, they know what their points of distinction are. Everybody has them. Everybody is a distinct person. They all have them. And I would say, in both their cases, because of the work they've done, I've got other people I speak to who are finding the market really tricky at the moment, and these people are doing really well. And they have clients in both cases. They have clients approaching them saying, I really want to work with you. They have really good clients approaching them and saying, I want to work with you. I don't want to work with anybody else. I want to work with you. And that is the parasocial relationship. And it has arisen because of the considerable efforts that these people have put into raising their visibility in the very particular fields of design that really interest them. So they're talking authoritatively about aspects of design that really fascinate them. They are in their joy. They're talking about the things that light them up. That's where they are. Um, so that's that. In terms of your governing values, so speaking personally, so I don't know if it's actually, I know I recently revealed my governing values and I can't remember how I expressed this one, but I have a value that um, I want to be exquisitely ethical. I want to be unimpeachable in terms of how I run my business. I don't want any dirty marks on my reputation or even a whiff of a dirty mark. And so that governing value informs how I show up and the things that I say and the way that I behave and the messages that I convey. And I can't tell you exactly how that would. I think it informs how I speak to people and how um I, I try to be sort of kind and thoughtful in the way that I deal with people, and that's because of this desire to be deeply ethical. So I couldn't be callous or cruel. I couldn't be cutting. I couldn't do that because that wouldn't sit with the governing value that I have of being this sort of unimpeachable ethical person. So I suppose if you had your governing values on one sheet of paper and your founder positioning on a separate sheet of paper, you would say, well, she cannot do that because that conflicts with that value. It's not possible. It's not possible to say that because it conflicts with that value. So there is a read across, and they should absolutely be aligned. And I think if you found your messaging to conflict with your values, it would feel incongruous and it would feel uncomfortable and it would feel like it wasn't you. So if you are true to yourself in how you express yourself, then you will be aligned with your governing values if you have correctly sort of defined your governing values in the first place. Does that answer the question, Stephanie?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it really, I think, makes perfect sense. Um, Basically, genuineness, sincerity is key in both. You can't invent, you can design, but you can't invent it. And I think the wonderful part of this kind of business is that it's just such an opportunity to be yourself, in fact. On that note, my sort of corollary question is, and you did touch on it earlier, that in the early days of your business, you weren't really sure who you were.
I didn't have a
Um,
clue.
I I struggle with, I'm not sure how I am perceived. What is the best way of knowing or learning how you're perceived? I think you're going to tell me just ask people, but asking people who know you is not maybe the best way to go about it. Um, what what advice, you know, you've obviously opened yourself up to feedback, but what if you don't have a huge sort of network or following to receive
Well,
feedback?
yeah, well, you know me, you know I'm AI mad. Um, I have done a lot of writing with AI. AI has helped me write everything I've written for the last 2 years. And that's been personal stuff, it's been business stuff. I've just got, oh my God, books and books and books worth of writing. And I ask, I ask AI, you know, what am I like as a person? If you haven't written very much, it won't know. It'll just sound like generic, slop. But if you have used it, it will tell you, and it will give you some really profound insights, I believe. So that has helped me. The other thing that helped me was, I ran my first boot camp in April, coming up 2 years, April 2 years ago. And I had 10 students on that boot camp. And afterwards, I asked them all for um, testimonials. And in their testimonials, they said things about me that were a revelation. I had no idea. And that was really helpful. So client testimonials, and I know you can only gather them um, as you finish work, you can only sort of mine them very slowly, but they can be very enlightening. And you can ask friends and family, you can ask your ask your partner. Um, I think that, you know, um, yeah, I think that's really the only way to do it. But I have had I keep going back to AI, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it really does. If you work with it a lot, it will tell you.
I'll say something on that too. With AI, I use AI every day. And if it was, and it also gets to know you really well to the point where if you write so much, it really knows how you think and how you like writing. And I'll just give in, like, this isn't a question, but it was more like I've been doing the same thing for probably about a year. And it took me probably, I'm still not right yet to where the direction I'm taking, but I feel like that year has allowed me to figure out what I could give and make me feel different and what services I can offer that are different. For example, just being quite international and coming across like that kind of coming across that in my posts and also having a background in like house renovations. So it's allowed me, and now since I'm talking about it all the time, that it's allowed the clients to understand that. And now the people who are reaching out and sending inquiries are the people who've bought, say, from the States in and coming to the UK, and they're like, I need help. So I thought that was really interesting because it's taken me that year to figure out what I was doing. And then the people who are reaching out are exactly the right clients that I want to work with. So I thought that was really interesting because I can really relate to everything that you've just said in this 1 hour. So yeah, very, very beneficial.
Excellent. Yeah. I think one of the hardest things is to see yourself and to
Yes.
know your point of difference. If you know your point of difference and you know how you come across, it's just so much easier to engineer this thing. If you don't know, then you just have to go out there and start trying. And for me, I started trying by pretending to be somebody else. And when that didn't work, I had got over the embarrassment of doing it in the first place, and I just sort of kept on. Claire, did you want to say something? I don't know if you.
Hi, hello. I was only actually going to pick up, but I think you just said it to Stephanie, really. Personally, I find it really difficult to talk about myself, and that this whole process, that questionnaire, would be really tough for me because it's really difficult to not be who you would like to be rather than who you are. And then I instantly thought about testimonials. I've only got two, but both of them very clearly say that I have encouraged clients out of their comfort zone and that they've been really happy with the result of that. So yeah, just to sort of back up what you were saying, if you can get testimonials, I feel like it's a really good way of starting to unpick who you are and what you're good at and what you can deliver. And I also know that I'm quite an antagonizer, not as in a person, but what I mean is I will sort of really pick at clients, well, why are you doing that? How does that help you? What's the end game of this? What's the purpose of this? And actually, what do you really need? And I think that's probably what they're saying about pushing out of comfort zones. But then, of course, finding the right wording to say to people I'm an antagonizer will be quite interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't need to tell you show it by doing it rather than
Yeah,
tell it, so what is it? Do, don't tell, or show, don't tell. So, you can, if you felt really comfortable, Claire, if it was like you were sitting here chatting with us now, you could appear and you could say, don't do this, or do that, or why on earth are you doing that? And it would come, this challenge would come across in terms of how you're presenting yourself. So if you start on that path, you will eventually get there. It's just that, it takes time and it takes practice to get to the ultimate destination. But it really helps if you know that about yourself in the first place. And testimonials, yeah, testimonials can be great.
yeah.
Any other questions? I don't know. We've got just a couple of minutes left, so I'm not sure if we have anything else. No? Okay. So I did want to talk about the next webinar, which is on the 17th of February, which is another Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's actually a double hander. So I am going to be introducing Nikki Harrington, who is a voice coach and a photographer. And Nikki is going to be talking to us about embodiment. So she's going to be talking to us about working with our bodies to be able to inhabit this persona. So, not to perform it. She's also an acting coach, but she's not talking about how to perform this role. She's talking about having optimal comfort in your body that allows you to be this person in a design sort of way. So, we're going to be talking about actually physically inhabiting this role and manifesting it in the world through working with your body to do this, which is a completely sort of different approach to this material. I do actually have a better description of that somewhere. So let me just read to you. So we've got the design self, embodiment, regulation, and authority, being seen without self-monitoring. So feeling like you don't need to sort of watch yourself the whole time that you're doing, and design presence and how that can integrate with your business. So that is going to be the work of our next webinar, which is going to be on the 17th at 10 a.m. in the morning. So I hope you might be able to make it. And it obviously will be recorded like this one, and I will now process this one and I'll put the link to it into the Hothouse group as well. Okay, lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming along today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julia. See you next
See you soon.
time.
Thank
Okay,
Bye.
you. Bye.
bye.